What up, nerds? I'm Jay Sharif, and recently I did a comparison between GoPro and DJI action cameras. At the end of that video, I told you the GoPro Hero 10 is the best option if you want to get an action camera for vlogging. However, just like all cameras, it does have its flaws, and that's why firmware updates are important. Firmware updates are a way for camera companies to fix errors and improve your device over time. Now, not everything can be fixed because cameras are limited by their hardware, but improvements to the firmware can eliminate bugs, speed up your device, prolong battery life, and even reduce overheating issues. Today, I'm going to show you the best way to update the firmware on your GoPro. There are two ways to update your firmware. Firstly, you can do it through the GoPro app. Just connect your camera to your smartphone wirelessly and follow the prompts. That's the easy way, but it's not the best way. The best way to update your firmware is to do it manually with an SD card, and it's a lot easier than you might think. But before we get to that, it's worth noting that there are two types of firmware update available. The first is a stable firmware, the second is a beta firmware. Stable firmware is approved and fully tested and should work perfectly. However, beta firmware, or beta firmware if you're American, is firmware that hasn't been fully tested and approved. Beta firmware usually has new features that the camera company are testing out, but there's also a likelihood that some of those features might not work properly. In fact, it's possible the beta firmware has many different bugs and errors. For this reason, I definitely do not recommend installing beta firmware on your device. With that out of the way, here are the step-by-step instructions you need to manually update your firmware. Firstly, you need to visit the GoPro website and download onto your computer the latest stable firmware for your camera. I'm going to put links to the firmware for the Hero 7, Hero 8, Hero 9 and Hero 10 in the description for the sake of convenience. But it's also really easy to go to the GoPro website and type firmware update into the search bar. Alternatively, just type this link into whatever browser you use to connect to the internet. So here I am on the GoPro website. I click on the camera I want to update, then click on Download Update and save the file onto my computer. The file you download should be called update.zip. This is the firmware file. The next step is to copy this latest firmware onto a micro SD card, ideally the micro SD card you already use with your camera. The easiest way to do this is to take the micro SD card out of your GoPro and stick it in a card reader. Attach that card reader to the USB socket of your computer and it should appear as a new device that your computer can access. All you have to do now is unzip the update file on your computer. This will give you an update folder. Copy this update folder directly to your micro SD card. Make sure you're copying it directly onto the SD card itself. Don't put it inside any folders. At this point, it's a good idea to eject the micro SD card from your computer. Before you insert the card back into your GoPro, I recommend you fully charge your device. Also, before you insert the micro SD card, make sure your GoPro is turned off. That's very important. Now, insert the card and turn on the camera. As soon as it's turned on, the GoPro should notice the new file on the SD card, and it will start updating to the new firmware. As part of the update process, the GoPro will turn itself on and off quite a few times. Don't panic, that's normal. And once the update is complete, you should see a tick mark on the screen of your GoPro, which tells you that it's done. This is the longer way to do an update. However, GoPro experts will tell you that this is the best way to do it. There are many examples of updates failing to be delivered properly when done via the GoPro app. So I definitely recommend you do it this way instead. However, if you're really, really bad with computers, then doing the update via the GoPro app is worth trying instead. If you don't know what ejecting an SD card means, yeah, use the app. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. If you haven't already seen it, then check out my comprehensive review of the GoPro Hero 10. That's all for today. I'll be back with another video very soon. Later, nerds.